Welcome to another episode of Mind Brain Movies. I am your Sherpa into the Mind Brain Hope, and I wish I had a drink in my hand right now because sometimes that's what you need after a long work week is a drink in your hand because of the craziness and toxicity of the workplace. And unfortunately, this is not my full time job yet. So now, someone here, my co host Dr. Gremlin, likes to make it. So I also want to drink here sometimes. Um,
listen. I come up with amazing ideas, and then half of them get shut down or whatever. But point is, you're welcome.
I think yes. I have said this before, and I'll say it again. Despite the funny banter back and forth, I truly do love Dr. Gremlin Liz, and we would not be recording right now if it wasn't for her. So, uh,
No,
despite
no,
her,
no. You know what?
despite her random texts at like 3, 4 a.m. saying, "Hey, look at this idea."
No. So I was thinking about this the other day, and I was like, I think that you a while back you made a comment in one of our videos something about you're the extrovert that adopted all of us introverts. And then I was talking to one of my clients and I was like, in my head what I wanted to say to my client was like, listen, all you need to do is find an extrovert that would adopt you, and then all your like friendship socializing problems will be gone. Because then the extrovert would do all the socializing for you and you don't have to worry about that, because
What's
that's
funny is
essentially what you've done.
a little bit, but like I kind of am like I like to more so say I'm like an introverted extrovert because whereas I do like go out and adopt all these people and I'm like, "Oh, let's go do this, let's go do that." Secretly, all I want to do is curl up in bed with my dogs and and hermit from the world. Like, so
You're like, nobody came to adopt me, so I guess I have to go out and pretend to be an extrovert.
exactly. No, honestly, yeah. Because if like you can ask my boyfriend, you can ask my closest friends, like even you know the dream of like I want to have the commune that's just like a farm with nothing but animals, maybe like one or two people, and just like leave me alone. Like that's the
Hey,
dream.
listen, okay, so I know you kind of said it as a joke earlier, but then I'm like, but what if though? What if it does happen? You
Oh
know,
no, it's gonna happen. I don't know when, but it's gonna happen. I'm like manifesting it on my dream board.
I had a we have a small community of like, what is it, tiny homes here, and they
Hmm.
look so freaking adorable, and I'm like, we could totally start with like a tiny home and then have
Yes.
those fancy sheds and stuff. Like that
Hmm.
would be so awesome. Like it's my dream is to have a little like village of like different like office sheds
Yeah.
where it's like for recording, for reading books, for I don't know, Boone needs plants inside probably.
Oh, kinda like how Miyazaki, he has his art studio, and then, like but down the street, he has his private studio, and then, like, down the street from that, he has his house, like, so it's
Yeah, so he just walks around. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
exactly. Exactly. So where can we buy land for like super cheap? Like
Idaho.
10K. Wait, what?
Idaho. I don't know.
Oh, no.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Anyways, the reason I brought up the whole work and dream retirement thing is long story short, long preamble short, um, we're doing another like kind of mini-sodes about workplace environment and bosses, but we're gonna kind of lean it towards like sitcom bosses because sitcoms are just more fun, I think. And we're gonna apparently Liz has her like spreadsheet of
Well, okay, so I was thinking
um
about this. Listen, we're gonna decide what to do right
oh
now
my
live.
god.
So you guys are gonna figure
Live.
out what our process is, okay? So I do have the checklist, and my plan is to do a checklist for every boss that we discuss. Um, but then I was like, well, should we do it for this first one, or should we wait until Boone joins us to like talk about it? Because technically I'm supposed to be the an impartial judge or whatever, and you and Boone are supposed to present your cases as to why, this boss is a good boss or not a good boss.
I mean, we can still discuss, and like you don't have to be impartial. It's just you set up like the guidelines, I guess. And then
Wait, I need
because
to
Boone
look
and
them
I
up
have
now.
experience in being bosses, we were gonna chip in our 2 cents as well.
Wait,
So, anyways, we talking about
wait, I need
sitcoms,
to look
talking
for it
about
up.
I'm
Sorry.
stalling while you look up your stuff.
Okay, okay,
So, because we're
yes.
talking about bosses, we're talking about sitcoms. I know Liz brought this up before, and I was like, well, let's do sitcoms, and a big factor all over the world currently is toxic workplace environments,
Mm,
toxic bosses. I know it's called work for a reason, but it shouldn't have to be torture or hell or whatever. And so there should just be certain guidelines, certain things that maybe, a boss can lessen the load, and every boss has their own boss, and I get that. And you still have to follow protocol, but there's ways to go about it, and there's ways to not go about it. And, like I said before, I used to be a supervisor, I used to be a boss, I used to run a lot of things. I mean, I'm not perfect, but I know some of the things I did
quit
would
being
be good.
modest. Yes, you were.
Some of the things I needed work on because I was kind of a rebel at some points, like fuck corporate, ugh, you know. um, so I'm not gonna lie, I might have taken care of my employees, but I definitely was one of those like fuck corporate, I'm gonna do my own thing. Eh.
Well, I feel like part of being a boss sometimes it entails you doing that. You kind of need to, because corporate is not good. It's so many people trying to make decisions that everybody just kind of tricks each other into thinking, oh yeah, we have to do this for the good of the company. But I think there's this thing that I don't know if like business people or like super mega rich people understand this, but people don't care about corporate. People care about people. So if the
Right.
boss is a good boss, I work good and I do a good job because my boss. Right, I couldn't care less about my boss's boss.
Right,
Right,
right. The
I don't
the
like he. It's just an
boss to
unknown
the nth
figure.
degree.
Yeah, like this is an unknown person. I don't know who they are. So um if I think if they would take this into account, the work environment would be so much better. And also I work a lot with neurodivergent peoples, and we're all like, yeah, we hate it. It is not
Mhm.
an environment for us. It was not designed for us, and it just crushes our soul to
No,
work
it
in a like
can,
corporation. Yeah.
but have we stalled long enough for you?
Yeah, yeah, I found it.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
so
So,
essentially, it's one, two, three,
well, anyway, so
15. Sorry,
I
it's
think the
15
first
qualities.
15 qualities. Okay. So, I think one of the first sitcoms that we're going to break down today would be Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and we're
And
going to talk
and this is
about
totally unbiased, not because I was binge watching it for the past week.
totally.
Yeah.
No, but I did watch the show. I love the show. It was such a fun show. I loved it.
Wait, so I binge watched it up to the fourth season because all that's all they have in on Netflix. I remember there's more to that because I
Yes.
think
Okay, I'll have to
on
get you my
Hulu.
Peacock account then.
Yeah, but what I think I thought I had finished watching it like the first time I watched all of it, but I
Mhm.
think maybe there was like an extra season because I don't really
There was
quite remember getting to the point where Amy and Jake had the kiddo.
Yeah, so that was, like, during COVID times when they released that season because they, like, rewrote the scripts to
Mm.
factor COVID and all that into it. So it was very meta based, that last season.
Oh, so that was the last season.
Mhm.
For some reason, I thought it kept going and that it was still
No.
going.
Well, no, plus Andre Bauer, RIP, love
I
you, Andre Bauer,
know.
he did pass away, so,
Yeah. That's why I
um
was like, how are they gonna continue with that?
right. I mean, Terry took over, well, he, like, retired in the show, and then, like, Terry took over as captain. So that would be possibly what they could do, but I want to kind of focus on Holt, not only because Andre Bauer, you're amazing,
Mhm.
but Captain Holt was like Terry was a boss, but like Holt was like
The
the main
boss.
boss, the
Mhm.
boss, and yeah, I definitely want to focus on him and like break down his qualities, break down his traits, and see why he's so legendary in the show.
Should we go from like a scale from 1 to 10 or just like a yes no they have this thing,
We could
this
do like a
quality?
yes or no and break down if need be.
All right, cool. All right.
Cool.
Well, first, but before we get to like the judging the bosses, I would like to know your sort of like general um thoughts on the show.
Okay, so my general thoughts are I'm so I was really hesitant at first to watch the show originally just because um I'm not really a police driven person to watch the show. Like I know it was supposed to be a comedy, I get that, but it took me a while to like warm up to that idea. And it was my friend Martin who finally like I went over to his house and he sat me down and he had it on and I was like, okay, well, okay, this is funny. I like it. So then I like went back and started watching it. Um and I really do like the show. I will say because they did go back and rewrite the last season, I do kind of like exile that because they did a lot of weird things in that last season. So I just kind of want to nix that. I want to focus on first through like seventh season or something. Um, and that was it was really good. I liked the setups. I mean, there was some things where I'm like, okay, that was dumb, but I mean, it's supposed to be like a dumb workplace drama, workplace sitcom.
Mhm.
But overall, I think it was good. A lot of laughs, a lot of heartfelt things, and the cast was amazing. Like, it's a good, well-rounded cast, and also, you know, th- f- funny enough, some of these sitcoms we're gonna go through with bosses are a lot of them are done by the same writers because like Parks and Rec, Brooklyn Nine Nine, and like The Office, which we'll eventually will do those as well as some others, but like they all have a lot of the same writers that like intertwine, so that might be why. um, but yeah, what about you? So you're coming off of a binge.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those like comfort shows. I was thinking, I had a lot of meetings yesterday, so I was like going here and there, whatever. Um, and then I started thinking about what it would be like to be these characters because they're so open. I mean, it is a TV show, so you kind of have to um, in order for the story to progress or for the audience to understand, they have to say certain things out loud.
Hmm.
They just have to be very open, or they just kind of have to have no thought as to what the consequences are. But then I realized, I was like, is this what it's like to not have anxiety? Because I always think about all of the consequences, all of the imaginary consequences as well.
Right, right.
So my brain is constantly like on guard. I'm constantly sort of like putting myself in this sort of like little box so I don't like step out of line, essentially, right? And be like a bad person or do the wrong kind of thing, right? And of course it all stems not only from my anxiety but from the fact that, ADHD, I had to pretend to be, masking, be someone I just not comfortable with. And then I was like, what would it be like to just like do stuff or like say things? Because a lot of the times, like, Jake will say like some really funny things to
I'll
Captain
like
Holt, and
title
he
your
just,
sex tape. Like,
yeah. And then it was like he just did like didn't really care. Like he had like his cringe meter was like broken. Like he had
right,
no
right.
cringe. And I'm like, but I think that's what made him so adorable, I feel like, because he just kind of said what he was thinking, and it's not like he was like a bad person or anything.
There was just no filter, so
Yeah.
to say. Like it was actions first, thought second. Like
Well, because I was like, yeah, very ADHD of him. And part of why I wanted to talk about this is because I felt like Holt and Terry dealt with him in a way that a lot of neurodivergent folk would love their
Yes.
bosses to treat them,
Yes.
because like he still had the freedom to like express himself, to be weird and crazy, and he was allowed to do that, but he was also like reined back when he was stepping like too
Mhm.
far into like the
Mhm.
wrong direction, and they were like, hold on, hold on, like we had to go this way, and then he would be like, all right, cool, this way. um but yeah, that's kind of like, I was talking to, I was doing a panel yesterday, and I'm like, i- if it wasn't for that like constraint that we all have, like that social expectations that
Mhm.
usually like really dumb and for no reason, like professionalism, the idea of
Right.
being like professional, it's like, I think there has to be sort of like this basic standards that everybody needs to adhere to, kind of thing. But other than that, it's just extra expectations that make no sense, and then they just kill our productivity and creativity,
I
and I
will
hate
say,
that.
when I used to supervise people, my biggest thing was, okay, we're gonna have two sides. One is customer facing, and one is for us. So when you're customer facing, yes, be polite, be knowledgeable, be professional. I was like, there are some cases where you can be a bit more comfortable, but that's after you kind of feel the customer, the client, the patient out. You know, once you develop that relationship. But
Mm.
initially, very professional and everything. Now, once that person is gone and it's just like the employees, then you can break that down, because if you're that constant professional all the time, you are going to hate that workplace. And I was like, okay, I don't care if you cuss, I don't care if you do this, but my basic things were, as long as you respect each other, you respect me, I you can mess around with me, but you have to, like, I like to say I was the mom. You can like mess around and hang out and joke with your mom, but when it comes down to it, you fear her when she brings the chancla out, like, and that was me. So I always made sure I had one on hand to beat them, but um, but that's how I like to say it. Just always show that respect, and always show like your best foot forward to the customers, because when it comes down to it, like, that's who matters at that time, not you, not your friend, but that person. So
Well, I think there has to be sort of like this boundary, right? Because yes, I agree with you. You have to, you're at your job, you have to be at a certain level, like have a certain level of professionalism, right? But this whole idea that a lot of businesses are like, oh, well, you have tattoos or you have piercings or your hair is crazy color, that is not professional. And I'm like, okay, well, get out of here with those dumb expectations.
that drove me insane.
Yeah, it's so dumb. And then they're like, oh, it's because people have stereotypes. I'm like, yeah, and you're feeding into them
Hmm.
by like allowing people to think that, oh yeah. Part of me said like, okay, if these people come and then like the secretary has like a piercing, or like a tattoo that's sort of visible
Hmm.
in her body, are you gonna be like, oh no, this is not the type of doctor office I would like to visit, or whatever? And I'm
So
like, is that the client you want to have? I'm
right.
like, no,
I was gonna say, so
go find another one.
I worked in a pediatrics office at one
uh
point, and
Oh my
I
how
was
many jobs have you had? Like, have you ever, like, just stopped and counted?
a lot. The joke is, like, I'm like Hermione and Harry Potter, how she had the time turner to do like 20 different jobs at once.
Yeah, basically, like,
Yeah.
every time we do an episode, she's like, "Yeah, so back in the day." No, you know what? You're like Rosa. Like, when she would talk
I
to
used to take
Terry.
ballet. I used to take ballet. I used to do this. I used to blah, blah,
Yeah,
blah.
went to Catholic school.
I
I
I
used to do
have
this at
I have
dentist.
chainsaw. I have a wire cutters so I could make my jewelry. Rosa, you make jewelry?
Yeah, like, I'll just, yeah, that's you. Like, every single time, like, we do something, you're like, "Oh, yeah, I have tons of experience doing this because I used to work at this one place," and we're like,
Everybody
anyways.
has that same reaction though. It's so that's like that's the joke of my life. Um, but I have this one, and I wore long sleeves because I get it. Like, I'll cover my tattoos, whereas they're not like offensive, but they're a little bit nerdy, whatever. It's
Mhm.
fine. So I wore long sleeves there. It was pediatric office, fine.
Mhm.
I have one on the back of my neck though. And a lot of the times I had longer hair back then, so most of it
Mhm.
was covered, but if I like moved a certain way it would show.
Mhm.
But my tattoo is literally it's a heart with a music note and it says pretend that and it has my best friend's birth and death dates.
Mhm.
It's a memorial piece. That's all it is.
Mhm.
It's just black ink, basic, simple. And they're like, "Oh, Hope, you have to cover that up." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "All my other stuff's covered. Like, how the fuck am I going to cover my neck?" And they're like, "Oh, well, you can tape it." I was like, "I actually have an adhesive allergy. Like, I can't keep tape on it for 9+ hours every day. Like, I will literally break out in a giant rash and look like the Blob. I can't do that." Well, they were like, "You have to find a way to do this because that's offensive." I'm like, "How?" Oh, and my one eyebrow piercing. I only had the one eyebrow piercing, and they're like, "You have to take
Mhm.
that out." I was like, "Okay." I played nice with the eyebrow piercing, but I was like, "How am I supposed to cover up this heart tattoo? It's literally a heart." And they're like, and I ended up getting like I used a headband, but I just put it around my neck, so it looked super weird. But I was like, how is this so unprofessional when I have a heart on the back of my neck that's covered by my hair most of the time? So it was dumb. Apparently this we're not talking about Brooklyn right now. We're just ranting about past jobs. Uh
I mean, sometimes you just gotta, because these things are so, again, like the way that we constrict people. It's so I'm like, I just don't understand. I don't understand, and I'm like, did you know that having a like a creative person work for you is gonna not only save you money but probably make you a lot of money, because they'll
right.
figure out ways to either make it better, more interesting. They'll, if you allow people to like unleash their true potential, things will be just so much better. And I think that, again, bringing it back to to Brooklyn Nine-Nine,
Yeah.
we are professional. We do talk about it. We do not go off into side tangents ever, ever.
No.
No. Wait, what was I saying? Oh yeah. wait, wait. No, I'm focused. I'm focused.
Can't.
Wait. Okay. So like, Captain Holt. That's kind of essentially what happened, right?
I'm
Because
sorry,
he
it is
met
Captain
everyone.
Raymond Holt.
Raymond
Thank you.
Holt. He met everyone where they were at and allowed them to sort of like be themselves in the workplace, right?
Yes.
And be creative, and they were able to do so many like really cool things because he allowed that, right? Not
Mhm.
saying that he didn't have boundaries for them to follow, or that he wouldn't like yell at them, and you know deal out punishments whenever it was necessary. But he had this sort of like, okay, if Jake needed like more creativity, then Hope will be like, okay, I'll give you a bit more space, but I'll be watching, like, just to make
Right.
sure that everything's going okay.
I just watched this clip actually where Santiago Amy calls Holt and she's like, "Hey, we're at this place. I was thinking, I'm not busy right now, Jake." And he's like, "Need supervision?" "Yes, be there with him." It's just like, "Okay, I guess that's settled." Like he's like, "He
Yeah.
must be watched all times."
Yeah, and I feel like Terry also kind of like learned how to deal with it as well,
Yeah.
in a pretty much a similar way. um
Well, the even
yeah.
the very in I loved the breakdown, honestly, in that very first episode where it's like
Oh
Rose
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah,
great,
yeah.
very professional, anger issues.
Uh-huh.
Amy, she's very good. She's very like strict, but she's like
Competitive.
OCD to the extreme, anal retentive. And then Jake, he's like Jake can solve every case. The only case he hasn't solved is how to grow up. Like,
Yeah, but like you see the progress, right? Like that
oh
each
yeah,
character
throughout the
makes.
seasons, yes.
Yeah, and again, I think that's because first Jake, I think he was sort of like the most. the expected one where we were like, oh yeah, he's gonna totally consider Holt his dad because he never really had a dad, and Holt is very dad like to everyone. But
Straight up.
even Amy and like was also like, oh, that's when I think I forgot what it was happening, but it was she was talking to Rosa, and they were referring to Captain Holt and Kevin.
Oh,
And then
when they were having the fight and Rose is like, they just need to
to,
spend a night with each other, and she's
yeah,
like,
and then
"Don't
she's
talk
like,
about
those are
work dads like
dads.
that. Don't talk about
Yeah,
work dads like that."
yeah, and it was like it they did sort of like become sort of like this family. But I think I also want to talk about like the difference between sort of being a work family and your like actual real family,
Yes.
because there are some jobs out there that are like, yeah, we're like family, and
No.
don't treat you like family, but they expect you to work like you're
Mhm.
working for family, you know. And I'm like, yeah, it's not the same
Not
thing.
like that. But anyways, I wanna get down to this metric that you
Ah, yeah.
created.
No, I want to talk about all
So,
the
like,
things.
what is some of these metrics that you've done and, like, I'm very curious.
Pff, it's it's I wanted to put it into sentences, but I didn't. So it's like the
Break it
first
down into gremlinese.
active listening. It's just a lot of sort of like skills, I guess,
Okay. Yeah, no, we could totally
of
do
what they
that.
had, because I think these skills are, if the character has these skills, or like even a person in real life has these skills, I think they have the potential to become like a really good boss, right?
I
So, or
okay, so
yeah.
let's do each category
Mm,
and then we can break it down like a scale of 1 to 10 and say why for each category for these bosses.
okay, okay. So
Yeah.
the first one is like active listening.
Okay.
How good was Holt at listening to his employees?
So I think honestly the active listening for Holt it needed a lot of work initially where he knew and understood his employees, but he didn't always listen technically because he had an idea, he had his goals. He was very, very goal driven and very organized. And I think it took a lot of him to truly listen to them at first because he was like, I have this idea, I have this thing in
Mm,
mind where he might have understood them. He didn't necessarily always listen to them, but I think that's also his personality, where he's just um like it would like there would be some things they would say and he's like, oh well this oh oh it took a lot for him to process things because he didn't.
especially when they had to do with emotions, I think. Yeah.
Yes. And I think that's more so a disconnect in personality and neurodivergence than like an active listening. So I mean they play hand in hand, but it's like, oh well, I'm upset about this. And he's like, okay, we'll get to your work, and it's like he didn't realize, like, oh wait, like there's a reason they're upset with this. Not
You know
just
that
like
you know that clip where Rose he's like confronting Rosa as to why he's never met like Rosa's significant other, and then Rosa's like, "Well, you can be quite judgmental," and he's like, "This is a stupid thing to say. Name one time I've been
and then
judgmental," and she's like,
what did he
you
say?
just right now."
Right, yes. Or like how he was so insulted that Terry didn't want his pregnant wife around Holt because he's like, well, I just mess things up.
Well, he never. Usually, he kind of like at the end of the episode or like following episodes, he kind of gets to the point where he's like, "Oh, I understand why." But for that
Mhm.
particular episode, I felt like it was a little bit rushed because he never got to the point where nobody told him that he was making her uncomfortable, so he couldn't really like change his
Mhm.
behavior because he didn't understand what he was doing wrong.
Well, also, it was also at that point like a lead up like it's not like it was the first month or year of them knowing him. Like there'd already been prior things like, all
Yeah.
right, pick up a signal, dude. So,
Well, yeah,
um,
and probably was one of those things where it's like, with when I'm working with parents, sometimes I tell them it's like, pick and choose your battles. Like, what did you actually want to be concerned about, and how your kid
right.
change, you know? And maybe that's how the team also saw Holt. He's like, okay,
Mhm.
this is something that's kind of avoidable because she doesn't really work with us,
Mhm.
so we can just go around it and
So
not make a fuss.
I think I would give him like a 5 or a 6 for active listening.
If we sort of like, because he got better, he did get
He did
better.
get better.
But if we kind of mushed it all together, yeah, I think I
Like an
would I would
average
agree with
score
you.
of, so
Yeah.
I'd say like an average score of 6 for his active listening.
Yeah. Okay. Decision making. How good is he at being able to make decisions?
Oh, decisions I would like straight off the bat 10. You know, I and that's because he is so goal oriented. And not only but
Mhm.
he goal oriented, but he has the experience to back it up. He's not like one of those bosses who just like was automatically a boss. Like he worked from the bottom and went up. Um and so because he had his years of experience, because he was goal oriented, but also had he was a black gay man. So he
Mhm.
already saw things from the outside perspective, so he had a better understanding of a situation. He didn't look at it through like your normal neurotypical like stereotypical ways. So I think when he made decisions, it was like, well, when it came to like the workplace, like and like the actual detective roles. Like some of his personal decisions were like, okay, that's kind of dumb, but like I
He
think
started getting petty towards the end. He was
yeah,
like, "You know what? I don't care about this. Screw
right.
them."
But when it
Yeah.
came to actual decision making to make things better, because he always thought about community first, like professionalism
Mhm.
second kind of deal, and I think
Mhm.
that was a good thing. So like
Mhm.
he was great at decision making.
Yeah, he didn't really hesitate to make decisions, and when he did hesitate, it was usually because it wasn't a right decision, or like it was
It
something that
was more
it was
so it
important and
was
needed.
when he hesitated, it was more so like, okay, I get fired or I do this type of deal. It wasn't like, oh, do I pick the clicky tops or the twisty top pens? Like it was
Mhm.
almost like a very, if he hesitated, there was a reason for the hesitation. It wasn't just because he couldn't decide.
Yeah, but like given that they are cops, and there is this sort of like life and death sort of like element for that as well. He
Mhm.
was very decisive in like how
Yes.
he needed to do things, which is great because that's what's needed in
Yes.
his particular position. So yeah, I agree with you.
Mhm.
Okay. I think we might
I
need
don't
to like speed it up because we're
yeah.
only down to two, and I think we've been recording for like half an hour. This is
Okay,
not
so
going to be a short
this
episode.
this first one, we had a large preamble, though, so we had
Yeah.
to stall for time. But yeah, we can speed it up. That's fine.
Empathy.
Oh, I'm sorry. I love you, Holt. I love the character, but his empathy was like a 1. Like, straight up, it was like a 1. And that is and that did evolve over time, but that's because they said it even from episode 1. He was a robot, meet more Zeep.
Mm-hmm.
He was a robot. Like, that was his personality. It's not that he didn't care. It's not that he didn't understand. It's just Jude is a robot. It's like insane. Even when he was in his feels, he didn't like empathize with other people's feels about his feels. Like when perfect example, Jake and Amy were on their honeymoon and he was like depressed because he didn't get something and he went to their honeymoon with them and he couldn't realize like I'm crashing their honeymoon as a depressed
He
baby.
just kept
Like
following them around.
yes.
Yeah.
And he's like, this tuna on my dinner is sad and cold like my life. And I'm like, bro.
Wait,
Like,
was it because is that when he got demoted to a cop or when
no, he didn't.
Kevin
I
left
think
him?
that was when he didn't get the comptroller, the commissioner job or whatever.
Oh, okay, okay, I can remember. There was a
Yeah.
few times where he was kind of like petty like that.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
that's an example. His empathy was not there.
Listen,
Like I
listen.
said,
I think at the beginning, yes, I agree with you. Like he was kind of like a one, but if we were to sort of like take an
over time
average,
it
I will say
grew.
like a 3.
It's still low. But
But
yes.
it's better than one.
So okay, his scaling went to a 3
Yeah.
after time.
Okay. Oh, well, this one's kind of tied to what we were talking about
Oh
is
god.
self-awareness.
Um okay, so his self-awareness, that I want to say that's a mixed bag. I'm going to say a 5 for self-awareness. But that's because he knew who he was. Straight up. Like he was very aware of who he is. He was very aware of how he functions.
Mm,
But when he's put into a situation, and like with people like Rosa who were like on the level of him, he was very self-aware with similar like-minded. But when it came to people outside of his comfort zone, he was like, I'm lost. I'm lost in the sauce. I don't. And he was not self aware whatsoever.
mhm. Yeah, I think he like his self-awareness like went up a little bit when he had to do with like work, but
Hmm.
outside of work, like with how his personal life sort of like affected his work, he didn't really have that. So I'm
I
actually
that
gonna place because I have two categories on my thing, a yes or a
okay.
no. But because we're going by numbers, when it is like a good quality that we're like, yeah, they have it. Uh,
Hmm.
I'm putting it under yes, but in this
Okay.
one, it's so low, it's kind of like almost like a no.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's too average to yeah.
yeah. Communication skills.
So he was very good. I this is gonna be an interesting one because he was so good at communicating to a fault. So he communicated so well, especially when it came to the workplace. He had expectations and he said, "Hey, yes, I expect you to do this, this, and this. Here is like he would make reports about like like it would be like, oh, do you like this doorknob? And he would make an essay about how this doorknob is correct.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was that type, and he communicated what he needed and what he wanted very well.
Oh
Now,
my gosh. Especially when he was dealing with what's her face? Like his arch enemy.
oh,
What
Commissioner
was her name?
Wunsch.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
Madeline Wunsch, yes.
yeah.
So,
He's so
and
petty. I loved
like I
it.
said, it was he communicated very well to like I said, to a fault. Like he did not hold back. Now, I will say one of my favorite, just a quick side tangent, one of my favorite things is when he got demoted and they were having a thing like, "Oh, there's news about Madeline Wunsch." And he's like, "Is she a Chixin? A Korean
Korean
toilet
toilet
ghost?
ghost.
Boring. We already know that." Like I was like, the fact that he literally went to Korea to study what a Chixin is, to call her that. Like I want that level of pettiness where I take a vacation to learn how to trash talk somebody.
Yeah.
Like it's it's shitty. It's so stupid, but like that's the goal. That's my life goals right
Life
there.
goals.
Yes.
um I think I will put his communication skills at a 7 because
Yeah.
at work he was very good. But I think sometimes there was that fixation on like, people saying the right thing and
Mhm.
it was a lot of like really black and white thinking. Like that one time where he was like teaching Amy everything he knew, where he was like, when people say what's up or whatever, and he's like, those are
Yeah.
people not worth talking to. And I'm like, okay.
Yes. But the
Yeah.
fact that he had a but it's also like one of those like backhanded things because he did have such a comprehensive where he was judgmental. He was very comprehensive in his
Mhm.
communication because he had like, oh, this was only volume 1 of 9 of my blah blah blah, so
Right. Yeah.
like we're not judging, we're judging his communication, not if it's proper communication or not. He
Well,
was
more if he's able to like communicate with another person, because if he was
yeah.
by himself like in a,
Oh
a
yeah.
clinical setting, his communication would be like perfect, right? But when
Oh
he
god,
had to
yeah.
like deal with people, he that's when he struggled a little bit. Yeah.
Mhm. So yeah,
um
I think a 7 would be really good.
yeah. This one is delegating tasks to other people.
That I think he was a very good delegator, but you
Hmm.
have to be in this situation because he's the captain. He can't have his hands in everything. The only like I will say perfect example is the Halloween heists. He delegated so many things to like he even delegated tasks to Cheddar in order to like create these heists,
Yeah.
so I think he is good at delegating, and he had trust. But I think a big thing is he had trust in his employees in order to delegate. Because if there was certain times where he didn't like when it came to like Hitchcock and Scully, he's like, okay, I don't trust you. I'm gonna do this myself.
Flat out he said like,
Like,
hey Hitchcock, just take a break and like go home.
he's like, this isn't your week. Just take the week off. And he's like, score. Like,
Yeah.
so and that's also delegation though. Like
Hmm.
he delegated him to screw off because he knew he would mess it up. So I think he is a really good handle on delegating.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah. I
and
agree.
what so that I would give like a 10 out of 10 for
Same,
delegations.
same. Okay. Decisiveness.
The decisiveness I think goes kind of hand in hand with
Decision
the-
making.
yeah. I think
Hmm.
that's like the same. I would give the same and for the same reasons, quite honestly.
Yeah, they're so close together. Yeah. I think this one would be like, if there is a character that doesn't really have these, like we'll have more to discuss in terms of
But
decisiveness.
with
But
Holt, I
for
think
him
it's
it's just
one of
so,
the
yeah.
same.
Yeah, I think it because you what you were saying, that he's just so, he has an idea of what his goals are, how he's gonna get it. So
Mhm.
he's like, okay, this is a decision I need to make in order to get to those goals. Yeah. Creativity.
Oof. Um,
Balloon arch.
this so his creativity, I will say, um, it definitely increased, and I think the biggest way it increased, though, again, was through the Halloween heists. Like, I think that's where you saw his greatest creativity was through those like play heists.
Yeah, but
Now,
that was also like super um job oriented, because he was using all his like work skills to make that
right,
happen.
but I will say when it came down to normal cases, he was very, very by the book. So his creativity, like it was in spurts.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Not
Um,
always. Yeah.
so I would say that's like a 6 for creativity because a lot of the cases that were
Ooh.
solved were due to Jake's creativity more so than
I
Holt's
you were
creativity.
wait, you were so generous on this one. I gave him like a 3.
Again, because with the Halloween heists, it was such a skewed thing. Like on average, it was total creativity was, but I
But
think
listen,
with
like on average, like what would you give him
uh,
then?
if we're gonna do an average, I would say like a 4 or 5.
Okay, fine. We switch it to 4.
Okay, so yeah, but like if we were to like do a case study on just the Halloween heists, it would be up there. But the normal day to day, the creativity like non-existent. So I was trying to like skew the averages.
Accountability.
Accountability, he is, I would say, I would give it an 8 for accountability, because where he did um own up whenever he messed up, sometimes it would take him a little bit to admit it because he didn't think he did mess up
Well,
sometimes.
especially if it was like more of a personal thing that he something
Mhm.
that he struggled with, yeah. But also he would, I think, for me, like it is that high only because he will also take the responsibility of like when his subordinates like messed up. He will also be
Mhm.
like, you know what, as a boss, maybe I should have done something differently,
Right.
and this is what, the result of it. So I also should also be punished along with them, kind of thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree with that one.
Yeah.
Confidence.
Oh god, that's like an 11. Are you the only thing again that would skew his confidence was, I think, maybe like one handful of episodes, and that was like one when he met Kevin's colleagues and he was
Oh yeah, when they were so
like
mean
when
to
Kevin's
him.
like, he's not just a hot piece of ass, you know? Like, it's so funny to see how they would skew R- Holt as like the smartest person ever until he was with Kevin, and then he's like a hot piece of ass, you know? Um and I thought that was
Well,
hysterical.
it's the difference between like academia and like not academia.
Book smarts and street smarts.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, but he was both, but still.
exactly.
Um, but his confidence level was through the roof, I believe. He was very confident again in who he was, what he did. Um, there were times, okay, I'm not gonna say an 11, but like I would say I would give it like a 9 for his confidence level, because there were times where like he'd be chipped at and it would hurt him. But overall, like major confidence.
Yeah, yeah. There was a few people that he encountered that he like his sister, mom. Um,
I
yeah,
wouldn't
there were
say
certain things.
they that mm, like with his mom, it didn't hurt his confidence. It was more like a childhood crushing. Like, this is my
Yeah, where
mom.
he
I
didn't
see
know
her.
how to. Yeah,
I see my mom in this way. She shouldn't be sleeping with a guy. Like, that's still my
yeah,
mom. Like, so I don't think that was more confidence, more so like any kid in that situation. Like,
or like habit.
yeah.
Yeah, flexibility.
Whew. Uh, so I'm gonna give that a bagel.
Big.
A
Oh
bagel.
wow, I gave him like a 3 only, so I didn't feel bad about it because it kind of did increase a little bit.
It did, but I'm sorry. The perfect example is like when he was gone and Terry took over, there was like a sticky pad or whatever, or like a pen that was literally a millimeter off, and he's like, "Looks like you've been getting comfortable at my desk." Like, bro, it was a millimeter. Like,
Yeah. All right, fine. I want to bump it down to a 2. There was some progress towards the
I
end,
will
but he was
meet you.
still
I'll
very
meet you in the
inflexible.
middle and go to 2.
Okay.
But yes,
um,
his it did increase over time, but like overall his he had very, very little flexibility.
it took a long time to like
Yeah.
those moments when he was flexible. It was like months and months of them working on him for
And
this to happen.
I
Yeah.
one of the better things to for an example, he when he opened like a Twitter account to to when he was campaigning, and he wrote a tweet, and it was like so inflexible and rigid that they're like, they thought you were a bot and shut your account down. Like,
Oh yeah. Because of the way he was tweeting. Yeah.
so like that's really not flexible, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, what about his collaboration skills?
Collaboration, I think, was again that was good because he did again, he trusted in his team and he collaborated with them when um there was plenty of times where he had to work with other, maybe offices or other people, and in order to solve crimes. Like he was very open and communicative with collaboration. So but I think you have to be in his position as well, because you have to rely on other resources, especially when investigating things. You can't always do everything like all in um inclusively.
I gave him an 8 on this one because he
Yes, that's
wasn't
a good. Yeah, I,
always
I agree with that.
collaborating. Sometimes he would get a little bit petty. Or he just didn't really
Yes.
understand his team's point of view. So he was
Hmm.
trying to do something else. Not that he didn't change or anything. It's just that
Hmm.
it wasn't like there was still a little bit of room for improvement on his
Oh no,
end.
I agree
Yeah.
with that story completely.
Resilience.
Resilience.
I honestly would give him a 10 on this because he had to go through so much
Mhm.
as an like openly gay cop, like back, what is it, in the 70s or
It
something?
was 70s, 80s, yeah.
80s, yeah. Definitely there was a lot of resilience on his part. And also because if we take into account that he might also be neurodivergent in
Mhm.
some way, like
Maybe
he
he is. We're not,
what.
that ain't hidden. Girl, that ain't hidden.
um yeah, like if we take that into account, then it's i- yeah, he had to like learn a lot. And for some of them, like flexibility, we're like, oh bro, you're a two, creativity and like all these things are like relatively low. But if we think about sort of like the way that he grew up and he sort of like the way that his brain is wired and sees the world, this is actually huge for him. This
Oh,
is a
no,
huge
yes.
improvement. Yeah.
And we're talking about it on, like, a generalized scale, not a personal
Yeah.
scale as well. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
True, true.
it would have to be skewed for
Mhm.
if we're doing it at a personality or personal scale, but, um and also just everything he did go through in the show. Like, if something bad happened, he would always bounce back. It might take a while, but not everyone can bounce back, and he always did bounce back.
Mhm.
So I'm right there
Even
with
though he
you.
was petty and follow Amy and Jake on their honeymoon and stuff, he still bounced back eventually. Uh,
But his resilience with always attacking Wunsch was great.
I love the feedback. I love the fact that too that Rosa was the only one that kind of got into it. She was the only one that will laugh, and I'm like, bro, his comebacks were so funny. I was
Dude,
like, I'm gonna start
at
using
the
them with
very
my
he's like,
siblings.
"Wunsch is dead. Bagel." And Rose is Rose is like, "It might be a live feed. I do see flames in the background from hell." And he was like,
Yeah,
"Yes."
yeah. That's one of my favorite compilations to watch. Like just him, like insulting Wunsch.
Yes,
So
yes.
funny.
No, I was calling you a
um,
goat, you goat.
uh, Experience.
That I also will say is like a 10, because again, because he worked from the bottom to the top, he, was with it for years and years. He'd been through all these situations. So his experience was vast and very knowledgeable. Like, and when he wanted to learn about something, he like dove into it. So he did have the experience to go with it.
Yeah, he was taking all of these like bomb making classes and like still furthering his like knowledge and experience in like
Yes.
certain things that had to do with his job, and also like outside of his job, like learning how to hula hoop and stuff.
Or his Zumba, or his, well, my razzmatazz class.
Yeah.
Oh,
uh
Peralta, what are you doing at razzmatazz?
um the last one is knowledge, and I think that's kind of like combined with experience, where I will also give him a 10 now for this one.
In his case, yes. Um, because there's gonna be some bosses down the line that don't have both. But in his case, yes, I would say a 10, because he did have knowledge. He was very smart. The like again, the only time he wasn't quote unquote smart was when he was Kevin's hot trophy husband. Um but
It's so
otherwise he
funny.
was right. But he was always very brilliant, very knowledgeable. It he did also always want to further his education. You know, he did always seek to learn things. So I think that is he is very knowledgeable. So yes.
Yeah. So overall, out of the 15 um skills, two, three, four, we only placed him in the no section 4 times, which is actually
Okay.
pretty good because like
Yeah.
every time uh we did score him on something that he did have, it was a very high score.
Mhm. He was an extremist, I will say.
Mm,
So
yeah.
that I will say he was an extremist.
Yeah, and not not very realistic because not a lot of people would be able to dedicate that much time, money, and effort into
Oh, of
doing the things that
course.
he did.
Of course. But
Sadly,
yeah,
you guys, this is a sitcom.
again, I was gonna say we are breaking down sitcom characters, so you
Yeah.
know there's always that like little leeway.
Mm-hmm.
So
Um. Yeah. That concludes our thing. So overall, I think I want to leave it as it is now. I don't want to discuss it a little bit farther because then I want us to do then another episode where we sort of like talk about
all
all
the
the
bosses
scores.
together.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
And then we rank them.
Yes, I would love that. So definitely make like another chart for the next person.
Yeah.
Um what so who are we going to dive into next episode? We did Brooklyn Nine-Nine and Captain Holt this time. Should uh did you want to do which sitcom did you want to do next, girl? We have Scrubs, we have Parks and Rec, we have The Office.
Is this something we can leave up to the audience to vote?
Maybe in the future, but
No, no. Okay. Uh,
because we're gonna
you
do
hear
them
that,
all anyway. We're
audience?
gonna do them all. It's just in the
You
order
know, I was
of
like, hear that, audience? You all need to start like writing comments and
y'all need to
stuff.
get that communication level and
Yes,
communicate.
communicate. uh,
Communicate. Um, but
um, wait, what was the point of this? Um,
did you want to do Parks and Rec next?
yeah, yeah, we can do that one next. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do Parks and Rec next time, folks. So brush up on your Leslie Nopes and Ron Swansons because we're coming after you guys and we're going to break down what's going on. So I think this was a really good episode. I think we broke down good skills that anybody can learn. Anybody can learn, not just bosses, but anybody can learn. Um, Good things
You
to
know,
take back. So,
uh, Boone has been uh telling me to do a lot of stuff that I'm kind of like, but I don't wanna. And then Boone's like, it's good for you. And then I have to do them because Boone,
because she's being a good boss.
yeah.
Even though
uh,
she's not really your boss, she's being a
she's been a
boss.
good boss. Yeah, so I think it would be cool. So don't forget to like subscribe or follow us on our socials because then you'll know. I think what I'm gonna end up doing is gonna do like a worksheet on sort of like a breakdown on things that we can do to improve all of these skills in ourselves.
Oh, for
But
sure.
it's gonna take a while for me to do that because I am busy doing all the other things. So I'll probably just publish it by the time we get to the end when we rank all of them. And then
Yeah,
that way they're available. Yeah, I think
for
it'd be cool.
sure. And you guys, always check out Psychology for Geeks. It's a nonprofit. We're talking
Yay.
about all these things as an outreach, and that's what Elizabeth and I are doing for her nonprofit. Like she said before, make sure to like and subscribe down below for Mind Brain Movie stuff. And also check out our merch store where you can get cool
Yes, buy all the Dr. Gremlin stuff. You
shirts like
guys,
this.
all
You
of
can buy
them.
Dr. Gremlin's stuff. All the proceeds do from our merch sales half of them do go to raising money for the nonprofit so we can get
And
awareness
most
and get these
importantly,
worksheets.
they go towards me winning this non-existent bet
Girl, bye.
competition. No, wait. I just want to win. Listen, listen.
There's
We have a
no
t-shirt.
winning.
Yes, there is. There's a
No
t-shirt
winning.
now, but I am working on convincing home to go into like stickers and cool things for us. So
I
stay
told you
tuned.
I'm updating the store, okay?
See, exactly. See, there you go. See, we get stickers soon.
Oh my
What's up?
god, I'm so done with it. So yeah, check out our merch store. Like I said, proceeds go to her Psychology for Geeks nonprofit. Check out Psychology for Geeks nonprofit. Check out our other YouTube videos that we have here. And as always, I've been glad to be your Sherpa into the mind brain. And take care of your mental health, guys. And we'll see you next time for Parks and Rec.
Yay!